Well, welcome to the BNI Effect, the home of amazing conversations with Brisbane BNI members, sharing tips on how you can get the most out of your BNI membership. I'm Tony Meredith, and ordinarily I'm a business coach, but today I'm your host and fellow BNI member, bring you yet another amazing interview with a Brisbane BNI member. This is episode number 55, all the fives, and today's guest is Mark Thomas. G'day, Mark.
Hi, Tony. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much for having me on the podcast. It's
Hey,
uh,
thank
it's been a big hit.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for those kind words. Mate, let's kick it off by you introducing yourself and your business. So perhaps give us a brief overview of you, your business, and the main services that you provide.
Thank you, Tony. I've been in business for about 6 years. My business is called Empat Consulting, and I have the sales training and coaching seat in my chapter. I've been a BNI member for about 5 years of those. And I've always been in sales. I left university, and my first job was sales engineer. I had no idea what one was. I studied engineering, and it was much better to be in sales than engineering. For
Right.
me, anyway.
Yeah.
So I spent 20 years basically selling capital equipment to industry or equipment to industry, right? So that's sort of my background. And then I was fortunate enough that I was during my MBA, I met a lot of people, learned a lot of stuff, and I went out by myself and started doing sales consulting, sales training. I've been on some pretty bad sales training over the years, and I realized actually what business owners need is they need help with the strategy, setting the activity, managing the tasks, sorting out a process, having a system, a CRM to manage it all, and then perhaps a bit of training on the back, like how exactly do you follow that process and how do you make the most of it? So that's really what I do for businesses between sort of 5 and 50 employees. And also, I have a fairly new product, which is ESO, which is say sales lead generation, like a done for you service, where we set you up with a CRM and do outreach for you. But yeah, that's me and Impact Consulting in a nutshell.
And what does ESO stand for, Mark?
Impact Sales Outreach, real simple.
Okay, there you go. So you talked about the size of clients you work with, but is there a particular industry that you tend to lean towards, Mark, or are you a little bit agnostic?
So the really interesting thing about this, Tony, is that lots of businesses get stuck with this, right? And just by saying that you work well in a particular industry doesn't mean to say you have to say no to others. When I look back over the people that I've done work for, it's very extremely varied, right? But if I was going to pick a customer that right now, it would be manufacturing, what I call boxes in, boxes out kind of business, right? So manufacturing, wholesaler, they bring equipment in, they sell it, and the boxes go out the door, right? So that's kind of like that's the dream spot.
Now, you mentioned you've been in business for 7 years. You've been in BNI for 6 years. So, what was it 6 years ago that prompted you to rock up to your first BNI meeting?
Yeah, good question. I was introduced by someone that I met on my MBA, right? So we just had coffee one day, and he said, "Well, if you've started up a business, like how are you networking?" And I kind of Uh, anyway, so I came as a visitor. I took a look at the chair value, the average chair value, and I went, I want some of that. And also, I had a look around the room and I was like, yeah, okay, you can help me, you can help me, you can help me. And I'll be honest, it wasn't about givers gain in that moment. It was what can this place do for me? Right. And that's really got my attention. I did a workshop with one of the members, Marty. Uh, and I was signed up the next week. It was like this is a no-brainer, right? This is just this is easy. I didn't even look at any other chapters. I was just like, okay, in this room, I know I can succeed.
Amazing. Now, you've mentioned chair value. So, we get a lot of non-BNI people listen to this podcast. What does chair value mean, Mark?
So that's the amount of business. That's the amount of business passed between. If you take the total number of members and the total amount of business for the chapter, it's the amount of business divided by the chairs, by divided by the members, right? And that gives you a chair value. It's like the average money that people make in the chapter.
Can you remember what that chair value was way back at your first meeting? What was that number that swayed you so quickly?
I think it was. I think it was. I think it was in the around the 50,000 mark.
Oh my gosh.
And and actually, like it varies a little bit, but I think our chapter is about around the 70,000 mark now, with less members, right? So yeah, it's pretty
Amazing.
powerful.
Amazing. How has being part of a BNI chapter influenced your approach to networking, Mark?
Yeah. So, like a lot of people, my networking had never been structured before, or even deliberate. And I'm the kind of guy that says hello to people going for a walk, right? I was walking on Saturday with the family through the bush, and we stopped and talked to several people along the way. But it's never been structured. I've been to lots of trade shows and all that kind of stuff, but not in a structured way. So um, that's kind of made me realize that actually you have to be very proactive about your networking. You have to be very strategic about your networking, and most importantly, like really deliberate about your networking.
And BNI has taught you that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. How do you measure the success of your participation in BNI?
So of course there's some BNI sets out some really important metrics. The power of one, around one-to-ones, educating yourself, bringing in referrals, bringing in visitors, right? So all of those, and showing up to meetings, right? Attendance. So all of those things, those five things, are really good measures anyway. But to be honest, for me, it's about giving more business than I receive, right? Because actually, the underlying philosophy of BNI is give as gain. And to be honest, if you're not giving more than you receive, you're not walking it, right? And I mean, that varies, right? That fluctuates. When I first started, I was giving much, much more than I received, right? And I will talk about that later. And now, to be honest, I had a great year last year, and I got a lot of work to do to catch up to get that balance back. But that's okay. But like I'm aware of that number because it's a good indicator. If I'm giving a lot, I know I'm investing for the future.
Fantastic. How has your business evolved since joining BNI, and what role has networking played in that growth, Mark?
But so just sort of going back a little bit to the previous question, and
Yeah.
I'll move on.
Oh,
One of the little sort of success stories, that's instructive here is, like I've had somebody in my chapter refer me to one of his clients. That client then went on and took on my lead generation product, and I referred back to the person that introduced me to uh, to do the CRM and to do the integration in that, right? So that went a bit of a circle, but then it went further because that customer of ours then referred me to somebody else, to a different company that I was able to bring the original referrer back into, right? So and there, there was a lot of money passed hands through that little network, and that's sort of like the power of BNI, and where you can really grow, right?
wonderful. That's a terrific example. Thank you for sharing, Mark. So how has Empat evolved since joining BNI? What role has the network played in your growth?
So it's interesting, like I don't believe things happen. I don't believe in coincidence. They happen for a reason, right? And actually, I stumbled across an old flyer. I'll show you next time you visit, right? And the truth is that the basics haven't really changed very much. The basics of what I do is still very similar, but how I operate my business has changed dramatically, right? Because what's happened is the experts around me have helped me understand what I'm really doing. They've helped me understand. They've given me tremendous amount of professional development growth. They've held my hand. They've picked me up when I'm feeling beaten down. They've given me some fantastic advice that I've taken that's just stepped my business up. It's so really, like my business was fledgling when I started, to the point now, that I'm growing in revenue and staff. I had to take a 6 month sabbatical from BNI because I needed to deliver work to a customer. And when I came back, I just sat in the room and I like, this is great for business. I'm amongst people I trust. Um, uh, and I'm intellectually stimulated, right? Like I am learning stuff just being in the room, and I know I can learn more stuff from people around me. So like it was a no-brainer. I was signed up by the end of the day.
Did you anticipate that 6 years ago? The success that you're having now, all the growth personally. So obviously there's the commercial success, but also the personal growth, the building of your own network. Did you anticipate that 6 years ago?
Tony, when I walked into that room, I was really focused on that chair value, and I'm like, if that's the average money that members around here are getting, I need some of that, right? That's all I was focused on. I never had any understanding whether I'd actually make it. And by the way, that goal of achieving that chair value has long gone. I surpassed that, and we're off.
Well done. Congratulations. What advice would you give to new BNI members, Mark, to make the most out of their membership?
So one of the challenges with BNI, some things like if you're a plumber, electrician, a real estate agent, perhaps, it's easy to refer to them, right? Because like so people are going, oh yeah, sure, I need, like, oh, I've got a tap leaking, I need a plumber, or I need my air conditioning serviced, right? So they do very well quickly, right? Other businesses like mine and yours takes a little bit longer. The trust barrier is higher, right? Takes a little bit longer for people to trust you with their own business and then with their network. So so one of the things with that was that after I'd been there about 9 months, I was kind of going, I'm not sure this is working for me. I'm not sure, like this is the right thing. Because I wasn't getting any, I wasn't getting any decent referrals and I wasn't making money. And I had a bit of an epiphany where I woke up and I went, hang on a minute, BNI's got hundreds of thousands of members all over the globe, and it works really well for all of them. If it's not working for me, maybe it's not BNI,
Right. What,
right?
what a realization.
But, like it just comes from, like I just sort of had this realization that like a massive dose of arrogance, thinking that it was BNI's fault, right, for it not working for me. And I was like, oh, hang on a minute. So actually, what happened was, I did a bit of education and work on VCP, right, which is visible, credible, and profitable. And I realized that although I'd been there every week, I wasn't completely sure I was visible to everybody in the chapter. And why do I say that? Because there were people at that time in the chapter that couldn't honestly, I didn't believe there were people in the chapter that could stand up, say my name, my company name, and exactly what I could do for somebody, right? If your members can't say that about you, you're not visible, right? It doesn't matter how many times you've stood up and done your 60 seconds. If you're not visible, you're not visible. You can be there. Trust me, you can be there for a whole year and people no idea what you do.
Hmm.
Right? And then when I realized that I was only credible with a couple of people and I wasn't visible to everybody, I thought I've got to do something about this. So what I did was, again, extremely arrogantly, I decided I'm going to make a power group. And I was sent all the information about how to set up a BNI power group. And I went, no, 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 I'm going to do it my way. A bit of a theme here, isn't it, Tony? So anyway, it's a self-reflection.
Yeah, that's okay. I got the easy bit, Mark. I'm just listening on.
So anyway, I set up these power groups. By the way, one of them is still going 4.5 years later.
Oh,
They've met at least every month for 4 years, and it's one of the longest running in the country, right? So, traditions and innovation, and on that occasion I rejected tradition, did innovating, and still worked, right? But like it was pretty arrogant to assume that 9 months in I could do it. But anyway. So the long and the short of it is that what I would encourage, the biggest challenge for new members in BNI is first year retention. Why? Because people don't realize the work involved in getting over the trust barrier, building those relationships, right? The power of one's really good, right? One, like doing all of those 5 things is really good, but it's not enough when you're a new member, right? So you have to do much more than that. You have to spend enough time with people before it really starts to work for you. And that's all whether it's in power groups or whether it's in socials, or you've got to spend time with people, or they won't buy from you.
now you mentioned power groups a few times. There'll be people who are listening who aren't familiar with that term. So what does that actually mean, Mark?
So great question. Power groups are so the chapter is the full group of people. Power groups is a much smaller group of people. It's like a subcommittee, a subgroup of members, and those members, I would recommend you keep it under seven's about the maximum you want, and less than three isn't a group, right? So that's seven, that magic sort of between three and seven. And there's lots of different ways of doing it, but basically you've just got to meet on a regular basis and find a way of getting to know each other's businesses, whether it's like a brains trust, accountability partners, whether you do cross promote the BNI way, cross promotion, or promote services together. Anything like that that enables you to gain credibility with other people in the chapter. But it's really hard to gain credibility when you're doing your 60 seconds. Your 60 seconds is important, but it doesn't get you to the credibility stakes.
Excellent explanation. Thank you. What's next for your business, Mark? Any exciting projects or expansions on the horizon?
I was just talking to my marketing consultant about this, and I said to him, I've been in business a while now, and this is the first time ever I can actually tell you where I'm going, how I'm going to get there. So I'm very excited about that. So the company size is the customers I'm dealing with are growing bigger and bigger. So that's been driving a lot of innovation. And that's more streamlined now and systemized than ever before. My goal is to be able to bring on a consultant eventually to be able to do the same as me. People say that consulting businesses don't scale, and it's just not true. You can, it's just not easy. But that's okay. I've always done hard stuff. Um, and and ESO, right? Sales outreach, right? So that's something that's very scalable. I've proven that's scalable. And the truth with that is that when people hire salespeople, sales reps, and you'd experience this, they expect them to be plug and play. Oh, I want more sales. I'll go and get a sales rep and they'll know everything they'll take my 20 years experience and within a week they'll know exactly how to sell my products or services, right? And you and I both know that's fiction. That's just never going to work, right? So the reality is what happens is new sales recruits do not do enough outreach in the first 3 to 6 months to keep their jobs. Which is why the average tenure of a sales guy is salespeople is so low, right? And actually, what this product does is this product puts 100 or more contacts into the customer's CRM, and does the outreach. And basically, we just qualify the lead, right? So those salespeople have got week two. Those salespeople have got qualified leads to go and follow up, right? So that's what I want. That's part of what I want to grow. Systemizing the consulting so I can scale that part, but also this sales outreach done properly.
And how do you see your relationship with BNI evolving as your business grows, Mark?
So that's interesting. Like there's a bit of a myth within BNI that you get to a certain size, you don't need BNI anymore, and I think it's rubbish, right? And so like I think that if you have become successful and your business has grown with BNI, there's one thing you still need to learn, right? And you can learn that in BNI, and that's how do you make, even with a large business and lots going on, how do you make enough time, enough capacity in your life to still do BNI because it still matters? And you can learn that in the room, right? So you can learn if you're in the right room, you can learn how to have that time to go and have networking breakfasts, have that time to go and do this stuff, right? But you need to find people within BNI that teach you that. So this idea that you get to a certain size and then you give up BNI because BNI is only for small business is just not nonsensical, right? Because there's always stuff that you can learn. There's always good business opportunities from that, and they just keep getting bigger. I was showing someone my thank you for closed business, the business that I've taken out of it in the last 12 months, and he showed me his, and his dwarfed mine, right? So as you grow, there's no reason why you can't get $1 million out of BNI. No reason at all.
Well said.
Uh,
Thanks, Mark. Oh, sorry, you got more there?
Yeah,
Oh,
you
sorry,
may
there's
me,
more.
Tony.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Go for it.
there's so in terms of my relationship evolving with BNI, because I understand that BNI is good for me at any size. I'm just as motivated as ever now. I'm currently setting up a new power group. Three new members that I've been talking to about this VCP and setting up a power group, all this sort of stuff. I found out last week they've been setting up one by themselves, right? Uh, I was fortunate enough to go to the BNI Global Conference in Hawaii this year, and that was amazing because what it did for me was really woke me up to the fact that there are this BNI model works for people across cultures, across the globe, and it's all about relationships uh, uh, within from between business owners, and givers gain. It just works, right? You know, like and yeah, going to the global conference and seeing that just really kind of brought it home. It's not a number anymore when you're mixing with the people.
Was there something else that you got from the global conference? Because not many Aussies were able to make it across. So, was there anything else that you can share with the listeners, Mark?
So there was a lot of takeaways, right? So one of them for me was the trouble with the with 1 year members, because actually when people go past the 1 year, there's once people renew for the first time, their chances of success climbs dramatically. And actually, what happens is you land up in a room with people that have been there for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? And they stay. Why do they stay? Because it works. But it's getting people, first year members, to remember they've got some credibility to build, and that takes a bit of time, right? So that would be one important thing to take away. One of the guest speakers was Bethany Hamilton, who's the surfer who had her arm bitten off by a shark at 14, right? And she still surfs, by the way. I realize now that my inability to surf is I've got too many limbs. Oh, I'm kidding. But this, so Bethany Hamilton, her motto, and it really resonated with me, is I don't need easy, I just need possible,
Hmm.
right? You know, just two things that I took away from Global Conference. That would be one of them,
Hmm.
because actually, you know, like business is hard, small business is hard, and you get knocked down, but it doesn't have to be easy. It just needs to be possible, right?
Hmm. And it is possible. Great. Thank you for sharing that, mate. That was a question without notice. If you could share one piece of wisdom with our listeners, whether they're BNI members or not, what would that be, Mark?
Yeah. Um, Bill Gates, when he had this idea in Microsoft, right? He took that idea, looking for investors and looking for some help. Took that idea to 2,000 people. He says, right? Not sure these numbers are exactly right, but this is what I heard, right? About 100 listened to him. Actually, you know, like sat down and listened to what he had to say, right? And 12 made him a billionaire. Right. So it's really instructive, and to me, in sales, it kind of makes sense, right? Because these are this it's a numbers game, but you do have to find the people that care, the people that matter, the people that are going to make you forward. But if you build your team and the right relationships around you, they'll open doors you never imagined were even there, right? And BNI is a great place to do that, because you can, as I have over the last year, you can connect with people in America, you can connect with people in England, you can from me personally, connect to people in New Zealand, connect to people in India, right? In fact, one of my referrals got thank you for closed business from my connection that I made with him someone in India, right? So you just have to build your team and build your network. And I think BNI is a great place to do it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Mark. How can listeners learn more about your business or get in touch with you, mate?
So one of the things I was talking to my marketing guy about actually is getting some video footage out on socials. So watching out for that. There's some content coming your way if you're interested in sales, in managing managing sales, if you've never seen a reliable sales forecast for your business, right? I'll do some work on that. There'll be some video footage on just how to get there. And also you can visit B2B, the chapter I'm a part of. I'm usually either on the visitor host or close to them. So I'll be happy to meet you there. Or you can just simply get in touch on my from my website or the BNI app if you remember, and just book a one-to-one. I try and do several one-to-ones in a week. So.
And B2B, that's your chapter you meet on a Thursday morning in the heart
Yes.
of Brisbane, in at the Brisbane Club. So, but certainly reach out to Mark if you want to learn more about going along and visiting him and his chapter on a Thursday, which is amazing. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate your insights, your wisdom. Look, that wraps up another episode of the BNI Effect. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and I want to extend a massive, massive thank you to our guest, Mark Thomas, for sharing all of his insights, his expertise. It's been incredibly valuable last 20 or 25 minutes. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to the BNI Effect wherever you find your favorite podcast or on YouTube. Thank you for listening.